Fasten your seatbelt. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Chrissie is hilarious.
Chrissie, have you ever heard of the comedian Basha K. Ali?
No, that sounds like something you yell out before you blow up a plane.
Basha K. Ali!
30 seconds remaining.
But you know what good to say? I doubt it will stand up to something. I have no disrespect for you at all.
I was very confused by the title, Everything Everywhere All at Once, because that's also what we call it when Ash takes off his shirt. I shouldn't be up here. I should be in school on the other side of the ocean. Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to another episode of the Chrissie Mayr podcast. You can listen to this podcast. Gosh darn it, we're everywhere. Facebook, Rumble, Rockfin, Spotify, SoundCloud, Twitter, Twitch, even Friendster. No, not Friendster. Please like and subscribe. Please subscribe on YouTube. I am inching closer and closer to that 100,000 subscriber benchmark. I can't wait to get that sweet silver play button. I'm going to put it right here, and then I'll finally feel good about myself. Hope you guys caught me on Timcast IRL last night. It was a really great episode. Tim was not there. He had to leave a bit early. I think they're doing a bunch of election coverage in Nashville this upcoming week, so he had to leave a bit early to set up their mobile podcasting unit for that. But I had a really great time anyway. Phil Labonte was guest hosting, and Seamus was there, a bunch of the local yokels. And I also did Pop Culture Crisis with Mary and Brett. So check that out when you get a chance. Today's guest, gosh, we love her so much on this channel. She is the author of 13 New York Times bestsellers. She writes a popular syndicated column every week, published at Breitbart, Daily Caller, Town Hall, Front Page, Yoo-Hoo, Talkie Mag, VDare, dozens of newspapers. She's been a major media personality for over 20 years. And she's just an absolute delight. You know her. You love her. It's Coulter.
Hello, Chrissie. It's so good to be here. And now I'm on Substack.
And Substack. If you're not subscribed to Anne's Substack, I don't know what you're doing with your time.
Well, that way you get my column directly into your mailbox, which people have been asking for forever, and I could never figure out how to do it from my webpage. So Substack does that for me.
Good. Yeah, Anne was just asking me, like, how is motherhood? And I'm like, well, I was sloshing a bag of milk through the airport, and I have to it's very uncomfortable. Some of the bags were not sealed. I was leaking everywhere. It's not glamorous. Anyway, I'm definitely not selling it to anybody with these stories of running through the airport with bags of breast milk, but it's fun.
Pulling out and looking at, which reminds me of how I think I could get anyone elected president by just running on a platform of, I promise to eliminate airport security.
Yeah. And the guy's looking at me like, I'm like, it's all breast milk. Like I could print out the paperwork, I guess, for you and show you that, like, you're supposed to let me through with any of my, various accessories that have to do with this process. And he's just like, oh, like, what are you going to open it? What are you going to taste it, sir? Let me get to my damn flight. Dude, what do you want to smell it? You want to mix it? Should I mix it into a smoothie for you? It's fun. The joys of mother. I'll look back on these days and laugh. So what I realized, and I'm going to play a little clip in case you guys are unfamiliar with the one and only Ann Coulter. I'm going to play this little clip, and we're going to explain why she is an election savant.
And which Republican candidate has the best chance of winning the general election?
Of the declared ones right now, Donald Trump. I especially like.
What about of all of them? I mean, Scott
fake
Walker.
Laughter from the audience.
Scott Walker, would you say?
Of the ones who aren't declared, no, Romney Walker's my ticket.
Romney Walker. See, but last time you said
So this was back on Real Time with Bill Maher, June 19th, 2015. And you guessed that Trump was going to win. And then he did. And then in 2020, you were not a fan of Trump. You were off of Trump, and then he lost. So it's clear to me that Ann Coulter is the deciding factor for our election. So I must know, what are your thoughts heading into 2024?
If I could just say what's going to happen and then have it happen like a magician, I would definitely say the communist dingbat is losing. I think Kamala is the craziest, most left-wing, and dangerous for the country presidential candidate we've ever had. But on the other hand, half the country really, really, really hates Trump. So I have to say, all year I've been saying, I was for DeSantis, and I've been saying Trump's going to lose, Trump's going to lose, Trump's going to lose. The night of the the presidential debate, Biden-Trump presidential debate, at that point I went 50-50. And then they substituted Biden for Kamala. I'm still 50-50. The polls are at 50-50. I've noticed recently that Republicans seem very, very confident, and Democrats seem
Very confident.
very depressed. But I just sent out a Substack on this because, something really interesting in the New York Times today. They had, before the 2016 election, they were so cocksure that Hillary was going to win. They mocked up the cover of the newspaper, huge 3-inch headlines, Madam President. And they had already written a special edition that was going to run that Thursday, The Shattered Ceiling. And they listed every single woman at the newspaper had some special take on it. Like Friedman would be writing about, the style, her outfits that got her to the White House, and what do we call the first gentleman? So anyway, they had all these articles. What would our founding mothers think about that? That was, what's her name? That woman, writer I can't stand, Gail Collins. That was her first line. And they just had to scrap all their special edition and their headlines. And I think the 2016 election was so traumatizing to liberals that they're just always depressed, and they always think they're going to lose, even if they're going to win. Nate Silver had a piece this week, I don't know, maybe it was yesterday, about how he's not trusting the polls this last week. He thinks that they're all, dovetails with my point. He thinks they're all afraid of, if they say Harris is going to win and then Trump wins, of being made fun of. Oh my gosh, how could you get it so wrong? Or I suppose the reverse. And he says that's why they're all hurting. They're all saying 50-50, even though, according to him, and this makes sense, he says, most of these polls, they're polling 300 people, they're polling 800 people. And the way you really get a sense of the polls is to mix them all together and average them. But you guys aren't telling us the truth about your 800-person poll and your 300-person poll, because if it's really 50-50, polling 800 people shouldn't be giving you 50-50. Some should be 57-40, and some should be the reverse. And I don't know, today I was just, do you know anyone who voted for Biden who's now voting for Trump?
No.
How about the reverse? Now for Harris?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
I could probably think of some vague, some neighbors or family friends that actually, there's a lady at the end of the street who voted Biden, very much regrets it, and is now slightly begrudgingly, but no, clearly Trump is the better choice. But I don't know anybody who's going to go Trump Harris.
Okay, that's my focus group of one. That gives me some hope.
maybe my dead parents will be voting for Harris from the grave, but that's it.
And also, how about all the Nikki Haley voters? Are they coming around? Are they going to vote for Trump? I just feel like our side I definitely think our side is overconfident, and their side is over depressed. And if I could go on to poly markets, I don't really know how to do that. Right now, I understand the odds are overwhelmingly with Trump. So I'd vote for Kamala just because the odds are with me, and I think it's 50-50.
And she's been getting some flack for not going on Rogan. Trump went on Rogan. He did the full time, and then we had JD Vance on Rogan. And now what's just come out, I think today, Fetterman was just on Rogan. I think he did a solid 2 hours. And Rogan is not public about like who he's gonna vote for, but you can kind of tell, like, all right, he had JD and he had Trump on, and you can tell by how his conversation flows, like he's probably gonna vote for Trump. But I think most recently he had Fetterman on just to be like, look, here's a guy who is disabled now from the stroke, brain damage to a degree, and he can do 2 hours. He's not requiring I go to him like Harris was requiring him to go to her in DC, and she only was gonna want to do like an hour. And a lot of people were saying, "Oh, Rogan's a diva for doing that," but I'm with a lot of other people who think, "No, like Rogan is more influential than Kamala Harris, I think, and he's not desperate to." I think it speaks volumes for her not trying to make the effort to come on. And there's no way that Trump is less busy than Kamala, and I think if he was able to do it, she should too. And I think just legacy media is very scared of podcasts right now, and I
Mhm.
they show a realness to a person that an edited, polished little news segment can't show you, and people aren't
Yes,
trusting.
although I think it might have been the wisest decision for Kamala. It's better to look like a chicken than to go on and have it be a complete disaster. And I think it would have been a complete disaster. I mean, even when she is taking either very friendly questions from CNN, Dana Bash, and she can't answer the questions and does that cackle. She's very, very off-putting personality. I mean, I mostly hope she doesn't win because I cannot hear that voice and that cackle and the way she nods when she's talking. It's just, and all the DEI stuff, it's a disaster. But also, I mean, even Brett Baier on Fox News, I assume you saw that. That was kind of big.
Yeah.
I sort of felt for Baier because you could see him thinking when she's clearly not answering a very simple question, how many illegals have come in under your watch? And blah, 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 blah. And the bipartisan bill, and we've done this, and it's the most important thing. He asked for roughly, a number. And you could see him, he didn't want to interrupt her because, all the feminists would go nuts and say, you're mansplaining, you're interrupting a woman, and she'd do that. I'm still speaking. I'm still speaking. Well, yeah, okay, but you're not answering the question. If that had been a man, he would have interrupted a lot more. So I think that was a pretty gentle interview because Brett Baier was scared out of his mind, and she was an absolute disaster.
You think he was scared?
I mean, I think he did a good job. I think he was scared the way any white heterosexual male would be asking a question of a woman.
And I think, gosh, yeah, he really. A lot of people are very critical, like of Brett. Like, well, he was harping on her too much. But I'm like, that's your job as an interviewer, especially this type of interview. The way she talks in circles, she'll talk herself out of answering any question, and that Fox interview was particularly bad for her because it's
Well,
just
that's what all of
she
the
didn't answer
interviews
anything.
should have been like that. It drives me crazy every 4 years that we have to let some member of the mainstream media be the moderator for these debates. So the Republican candidate for president has to debate his opponent and all of the moderators. And the two MSM debates we had, the David Muir with the unidentified beige woman, and then the two snippy ladies, the Irish ladies, Brennan and O'Donnell. Their questions, it was like they were written by chubby co-eds at some mid-level college. What do chubby co-eds care about? Global
Abortion.
abortion, school shootings, and meanwhile, poll after poll after poll has said what are the most important issues to the American people? Immigration, the economy, inflation, crime. That's about it.
Yeah.
And none of those get asked. I mean, it's inflation, economy. That's sort of the same thing. Jobs, I guess. Jobs. That's a big one. It's not global warming.
No, it really isn't. It's the environment is on pause right now, okay? Until people can afford a pound of roast beef, all right? Because last I checked, it was $20. And I always come back to the roast beef because it's keto friendly. Yeah, I always say like you have to be doing pretty good in life if your top concern is abortion, or you're young, you're too young and stupid to know any better, which is exactly how I was in my 20s. So, and that's her prime demographic. And
Yeah,
I'm blown away when I started hearing how much money both candidates are spending in places like Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. I think they spent something like together, like it might have been. I think I heard $600 million just in Michigan. Some like unbelievable figure
I
like
can
that
agree
from
with that. Yeah.
both candidates, and I was like, "How about you just divvy up that money?" Like, how much would each person who lives in Michigan get
Right.
if you just divided, like, all those millions of dollars up to each
Well, that's what
person?
Elon's trying
It's so
to
crazy.
do. He's actually putting his money where his mouth is. And I do know Kamala has taken in boatloads more than Trump has. I don't know the multiple, but let's say 5 times more. And I know that because the New York Times keeps bragging about it in headlines. Woohoo, isn't this cool? She's collected so much more money in campaign donations than Trump. So I would just like, the New York Times on record. Okay, so money in politics isn't a problem now, New York Times, because for 20 years you've been screaming about how we have to get money out of politics and money out of politics. But when their candidate, as Hillary did, when their candidate gets more, oh, that's just so cool.
Yeah, and they have been caught astroturfing. Well, they're much better at social media. They've got staffers and volunteers in places like Reddit, creating, which is nothing really new, but they're sort of like creating these threads. And it's a pretty left-wing site to begin with, but it's just amazing the lengths that they're going to really create this image that Kamala is more popular and liked than she truly is. And like I even read something that they were fudging like Google search history, just the depths that they're going to. It is
That's
kind of more of
interesting.
the same censorship that we were seeing in 2020, but it's just they're shameless about it. And I'm worried what's going to happen if she wins because people are going to be like, she's not good. Wasn't in the primaries. People don't like her. She's not smart. She's not qualified. Like she's such an obvious DEI hire. Are the
Mhm.
Republicans just going to throw their hands up and be like, we might not vote ever again if she wins?
Well, I think it's worth bearing in mind, and actually, you're saying things that are making me feel much better. Um, I think it's worth bearing in mind that any other Republican would be 15 points ahead. Any other Republican. I mean, there are things I like about Trump, mostly the 2016 campaign. I do find it hilarious that liberals are acting as if he says there's going to be a mass deportation force. Oh no, we're going. What about my neighbor? My house?
What about my gardener, my pool boy? My house is going to be a mess.
What was the other one? Oh, yeah, that he's going to deploy the military against Nancy Pelosi. Do you guys remember how he actually governed? I mean, if he would do, half of this, I would be a lot more enthusiastic about him. No, he said he was going to deport dreamers, first thing so fast your head is going to spin. And then he gets in, doesn't start on the wall. Going to do that right away. No, he didn't start that until year 4. Sorry, I wasn't going to complain about him until this election is over. But at least for the scaredy cat liberals, Trump he holds press conferences saying, "Oh, the dreamers, incredible kids. They're going to be very happy with the solution." And he tried to give them amnesty through, that genius son-in-law of his, Jared. So no, his base. Don't worry, liberals. He betrayed his base. He's going to sit in bed eating cheeseburgers, tweeting. But at least this time we have a smart vice president.
True. So, in what ways do you think the 2016 campaign was much better than the one he's doing now?
Well, I guess the campaigns are the same. It's just that I didn't know he wasn't going
As
to do
much,
any of it.
Right. We don't have his whole administration of things he didn't accomplish to
And that,
refer
I mean,
back
that
to.
was the main reason, obviously, I supported him. Like most normal people, I find his personality, a teensy bit obnoxious. But he was offering the basket of issues I've been waiting for some Republican to run on forever, mainly trade and immigration, and then, not tanking the economy by what the Biden-Harris administration, okay, there will be no drilling for oil. There will be no fracking. Let's make sure fuel prices are through the roof. I mean, Democrats do bad things to hurt the economy. I assume any Republican would not do those things. What set Trump apart was immigration and trade. I think he's right about those. I'm glad he ran on those. But there were other things he did, and I wrote about it in my book, In Trump We Trust. I was introducing him at rallies 2 weeks after he announced, because of immigration. And so before the election, it came out, I don't know, summer of 2016, In Trump We Trust. And I've given it to candidates I like, Republican candidates, since then, because there was a lot of other great stuff he did. And off the top of my head, two things are, maybe three things. We didn't have to get the Horatio Alger story from him. I'm sick of hearing that your father was a bartender, that your father was a postman, that, you grew up a poor Black child in the South, or whatever it is. We don't care. We really, really, really don't care. Definitely don't want to hear from the wife. That's why after Pat Nixon, Melania is 100% my favorite first lady. Why, you ask? Because she doesn't speak English. That's what I wanted.
She keeps to herself. She did put a book out that I don't know if it's doing that well. And now she's quiet again.
Lady Vance's wife. She apparently has zero interest in politics. Do you even know what her voice sounds like? That's the way I want my first. So I
like that. Yeah,
I liked that. And the other thing Trump did was that he rejected campaign consultants. And I mean, he still does this. Sometimes it gets him in trouble, but I think it's worth it for the authenticity. They all have the same Republicans used to. I hope the 2016 has trained them out of this. But, I'm a change agent. We need to be prepared for the 21st century. That was like the Rubio line, but they have all these like consultant devised lines that are just like nails on a blackboard. Get rid of the consultants and talk like a normal person.
Yeah. And I think that's what people, as kind of almost retarded as he sounds, is what people appreciate about Fetterman slightly. This is, okay, let's see. I have a clip here. I wanted to talk about the influence of celebrities going into this election, their endorsements. Let's see. And I think everyone kind of knew, everyone knows Cardi B, of course. Remember Cardi B? 2 years ago, she famously kind of proclaimed she will not be supporting any candidates. And she actually was kind of making a few points. This was 2 years ago.
Don't fucking ask me. I don't give a fuck. The resume I don't give a fuck. I'm not endorsing no fucking presidents no more. Because we could fund 2 wars. Motherfuckers talking about we don't got it, but we got it. Like, we're the greatest nation. No, the fuck we're not. We're going through some shit right now. Like, say it. We're really going through. We really are fucked right now. And yeah, we talking about we could fund 2 wars. That's like a nigga trying to front like, yeah, I got the money to support 2 bitches, but you really don't. Y'all talking about y'all don't make negotiations with the odds, but y'all need to sit the fuck down with these people and find find agreement. No, we cannot fund these fucking wars. We can't. Keep it a bean. We can't. This is fucking crazy. And then you know what? I told myself this week, like, yo, the internet right now is too dark because celebrity drama, of course, we love it. We infuse with it. We watch it. But it's like, yo, that's little of what's really going on in the world right now. That's nothing compared to what's going on in the world right now. The world is in fucking shambles.
Okay, so this is 2022. I was like, great, Cardi B, she's waking up. Maybe she's walking away from the left. Maybe she is her own person. And then I see this clip, which just came out this week. A lot of people retweeting it. She's on a stage Not only is she promoting Kamala, but she has this mega embarrassing moment where the teleprompter breaks.
1 second, guys. 1 second.
Can't you riff, Cardi?
Okay. So I don't take lightly the call. Sorry, guys. I'm a little nervous. I'm a little nervous, guys. I've been waiting for this moment this whole life. My whole life. I need patience over here. Patience, where are you, girl?
This is so cringy.
I need patience over here.
This just goes on and on. And like, does she end up riffing at all?
Are we ready to change these 4 years? No. Are we ready to change the next 8 years? Because we're going to make sure we have Kamala Harris in office for 8 years.
So like, what changed? People are quick to say, "Oh, she's in the Diddy. She's on a Diddy tape somewhere." But I don't know. Maybe it's just money. Maybe she has to show her fellow Hollywood elite, you know, who butters her bread. I don't know. And how much influence do you think people like her still have?
Well, I think it's good because there haven't been enough Black women speaking up for Kamala.
True.
That's sarcasm.
There was Beyonce, the other part of Destiny's Child, Kelly Rowland.
No, in the DNC, I know I'm the only person who watched it, but it was every Black person I've ever heard of. And I thought, this is really getting away from the usual Democratic playbook of, Bill Clinton, Obama. They were, I didn't like either of them, but they were unifying messages, and it was appealing to people other than fans of Cardi B. The Democratic National Convention was not.
Yeah, I mean, she's still got a ton of followers. I don't know. And it's like, okay, dumb people need to vote too, and they're looking for trusted voices for direction. But I just don't know. I'm just like, wow, what changed? 2 years ago, she was so passionate, and now she looks like a sucker now.
Also, one of the things she was passionate about there was, she was talking about the two wars. I don't know if that was, before or after October 7th, but obviously one is Ukraine. I'm not sure what the other, I assume the other one is what's happening in Israel. And I've been asking that. I just asked Miss Mickey Kaus about that on my last election podcast that we put up today or yesterday, I guess. What happened to the Ukraine war? It is so weird how that is not even part of the discussion. I mean, luckily Trump brings up the fact that he's not going to send your sons, and I hate that he has to say it, but and daughters
and thems, yes,
to overseas wars. But I mean, when this whole Ukraine idiocy started, you will recall every stupid female had, the big Ukraine flag and on their front doorsteps and their stores and the pins and that building, building was lit up at night with the Ukraine flag. Okay, several $100 billion later, and all they've managed to do is get a lot of Ukrainian men killed. Whole lot of them. Also Russians, but we're going to fight that war until there's not one living Ukrainian. You go, Biden, Harris. And at the time, DeSantis first, and then I believe J.D. Vance, but DeSantis gave an answer saying, I don't know why we are investing in this border dispute when we should be taking care of our border. It was a fantastic, perfect answer. Wall Street Journal, absolutely blistering attack on him. Blistering attack. Oh my gosh, they are such neocons and they want to go to war constantly. So I don't know. I think if I were J.D. Vance and DeSantis and Trump, I'd be talking about the Ukraine war. How come you guys aren't bragging about it? You sure have wasted a lot of American taxpayer money on it. What have you accomplished with it? At At best, we will end up where we would have ended up if they'd struck a truce right away.
I wonder if it's just because a lot more of the American public is aware of just how much money has been spent, and people are really angry about that instead of dealing with, I don't know, like our own homeless, our own veterans. There's so many
Yes.
other causes that money could have gone to.
Oh, I see why the Democrats aren't talking about it. I mean, that would have been something nice for Brennan and O'Donnell to have brought up at the vice presidential debate.
Yeah, it's cutting into the reparations money.
Which, by the way, Kamala Harris is in favor of, and she has not taken that back. One thing I will tell you, I've been screaming this from the rooftops. Both the media and I've noticed, people on my side, Republicans saying, well, she's changed positions on all these positions. What does she really believe? She doesn't believe anything. She's an airhead. Oh, no. She has not changed these positions. She has allegedly changed her position on one thing, fracking. One thing. She has not taken back calling ICE agents, comparing them to KKK members. She has not taken back that she thinks illegal immigration should be decriminalized. She has not taken back defund the police. She has not taken back funding that Minnesota Freedom Fund that was releasing violent criminals. That tweet is still up. She was voted the most liberal senator compared to some pretty liberal senators. The transgender operations for prisoners and illegals. She has not taken any of that back.
But she'll win people based on I was listening. A good friend of mine was explaining, and we don't really talk politics too much. She was explaining to me why she isn't voting. And it was fascinating to me because what she was saying was, she's like, well, first she said, I don't feel like qualified enough to vote. And I was like, girl, there's people way dumber than you voting all the time. So it's not about that. And then she was like saying something to the effect of that because Trump's side and the right wing is associated with like the religious right, that like overall puts like a bad stink on she was like equating Trump by like the supporters and the kinds of people that he attracts. And like that was one of her reasons for not voting. I thought that was so fascinating. Like just
That's
the
hilarious.
effect. You have no idea like the ripple effect that propaganda has on folks. And
That
and
was
I remember,
something.
and she's one of my best friends. And I was like, wow, she didn't feel like her vote would count. She's like, well, I could vote in New York, which is blue, or South Carolina, where I'm from, which is red. And what's the point? They would cancel each other out. And I just was like, it made me sad because I'm like, say what you will about the voting shenanigans, or what do they call it when they? What's that word? The buzzword that they were saying, like they were fortifying, right? The fortifying. I still think you can't throw your hands up and say, well, I guess I'm just not going to vote, but.
No, I'm in favor of people doing that. I salute your friend. Actually, I wish more people who didn't know what they were, like I always say, it would be like me, voting on who just won the Super Bowl or who's going to be
the
in
Dodgers. The Yankees blew it.
You remind me of something else that I praised Trump for in Trump We Trust, and that is, yes, by and large, Christians overwhelmingly vote Republican, but Christians do not expect you to be one of us. And that was something that was, the Republican candidates were getting a little too churchy. I don't know if you remember this, but Ted Cruz began his campaign running against Trump. And look, I hate to make fun of this. I am a Christian, but but this is just a little too fruity for me. You can be manly and still be a Christian. He began it at Liberty University, saying the most important issue in this campaign is, the rise of the body of Christ. Well, no, Ted, you're running for president of the United States. And that was something that I weirdly we sort of needed the antidote of someone who is Donald Trump. You can tell your friend, I promise you we will not have mandatory Bible reading under Donald Trump.
Right. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Who do you think is gonna win the specific swing states of Pennsylvania, Nevada, North Carolina, what is it, Arizona, and Georgia?
Those are the big ones.
Yeah.
Oh boy, those are the big ones. It's funny. The one that I think Harris is going to win is Michigan, but only because I feel like they're going to cheat enough. And I don't want to encourage people to think that it's all done by cheating. Democrats have always cheated. We've still managed to
Fortifying. Yes.
fortify. We've still managed to win our elections, and I hope that happens this time. But I don't know. I mean, you named the states that we'll be watching very closely. I guess we'll probably get, well, the East Coast ones first, the North Carolina and Pennsylvania. And that's going to tell us a lot on election night.
And Kamala's losing with Muslims. I think Trump made God, I think it's the Muslims in Michigan because of her stance on the because of the Israel-Palestine conflict. And she's always getting at least one or two protesters at every rally and speech she does, just like in the back, like, cawing about the war, like free Palestine. And she'll just be like, okay, I know you need to be heard, and I'm going to do what I can to make sure people know about that. Like, she's not even saying I'm going to do what I can to end the war. Like, the clip that's going around is like, I'm going to do what I can to make sure that that's heard. But I am speaking. Like, she comes off like such a see you next Tuesday to say that at her rallies. And she says it just about once every time now.
And the weird thing is, I don't think we've ever had a president who's sucked up to Israel more, and I'm in favor of it, but than Donald Trump. So if it's really about, and also, in her heart that Kamala is totally with Hamas. Of course she is. They're always on the side of, the indigenous, the uncivilized against the civilized. It makes total sense that she's got to be for Hamas. Trump's a decent person. He wants the war to end. He wants it to stop. And I think he would end it pretty quickly because, I think it's already leaked out that he's put pressure on Bibi. I get to wrap this up before I get into the office. So he does apparently have influence with Bibi Netanyahu. But I think I worked for at the time, the only Arab senator. I wonder if we've had any since then. Anyway, Spencer Abraham from Michigan. And a lot of the Muslims are Republicans. They're just Republicans. They don't like the transgender stuff. It's only the more recent ones where we start to get more like the peasants, like the Venezuelans we're getting now. This is in my book, Adios America, but pre-1970 immigrants and the post Ayatollah immigrants, so that's a little later in the 70s, they were educated, they were doctors, it was a totally different brand of Muslim and of every immigrant, and they tended to be Republicans. So I think that's why they're going for Trump.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We got some questions from the chat. K-Max, thank you so much for the pink boy. Wow, very generous. Anne, is the leftist cancel culture truly new? I feel even in the 1990s, you were attacked by the left, but allowed to speak. Nowadays, they don't even allow different opinions. Did it start at the colleges you spoke at, this cancellation stuff?
That's a good question. When it really started, I feel like it started with Trump. I'm not because of Trump, but that was when the media got a lot less fair. It may have been going into that election. Did it start before then? But I think it was around 2015, 16, where certainly the media, and I have friends who are mainstream media journalists, and I remember saying to them at the end of the first Trump term, is this going to go away when Trump is out of office? Because it's really ridiculous how unfair the news pages are. And I know you guys think this is, it's a threat like we've never had before. We have to drop all standards. Is this going to go away? And he thought it would. It has not gone away. I guess it's fun to talk to yourself and work yourself up into a frenzy. But you're absolutely right. I used to go on everything, all the morning shows, Good Morning Marriage Today and Leno, and MSNBC and CNN. You would have the debates. Now they don't do that. Part of it may be because, this, Chrissy, no one I would say under the age of 60, maybe 70, owns a television set. And that's why the podcasts are so big. And it may be that when you get to be older, you don't want to hear people arguing.
I think they do have a TV, but they are projecting, right, like YouTube and watching it on a TV or
Right.
anything else from the old Fire Stick. But yeah, you're right there. And I only really watch like legacy media when I'm in a hotel room with like sort of basic cable, or when I'm waiting in an airport. And then I go, oh wow, like I listened to 5 minutes of MSNBC and CNN last night, just like while I was waiting to fall asleep. And I was like, it's cartoonish. They're going on and on about Trump's divisive rhetoric, how dangerous he is. I'm like, you've been calling him a Nazi nonstop. He's had legit attempts on his life. And it's
something
really,
to behold.
how do they take themselves seriously is what I wonder.
I know.
And we have a question from my father-in-law. He was like, I need to know, why don't you go on Hannity anymore? Is that complicated?
Yeah, not something, but he won't have me on. Why won't he have me on? Because I caught him keeping me off other people's programs, because I was good for ratings, and may as well blurt it out. And I couldn't understand. I talk about doing every show. I used to, mix it up, do lots of shows at Fox News. And he kept blaming Roger Ailes. And then through the grapevine, I found out, oh, no, it was always Hannity, because he thought, as if people notice, oh, Hannity's cool. He's the only show Ann Coulter goes on. Nobody even notices. They don't know if it's Hannity or O'Reilly or whatever. But he was blocking me from everything else. And when I found it out, I confronted him. And I got Trump to get him to put me back on. But yeah, we had a little falling out.
Oh God, that's ridiculous. I feel like I've been kept off shows for ridiculous, insane reasons too. I mean, it's just sometimes it feels like a bit like high school.
I also think overall, the reason TV is so insipid, our side and their side, is, as Truman Capote said about California, I think you lose a point of your IQ for every day you host a show on television.
Oh.
Even people who start off smart, they don't have time to read or know anything. And it's just easier if you know what the other, this has always driven me crazy about cable news from the very earliest days, how it's like a pre-programmed tennis game where they're supposed to know what you're going to say and you know what they're going to say, and it just goes back and forth. And then you have the next set of guests and they're going to say the exact same things back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And, that kind of thing you can do in your sleep. You don't have to prepare. It's an easy job. You get paid a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And there are sometimes I feel like, on one hand, I feel like pressure, like I got to stream, I got to get X amount of interviews every week. And then there are sometimes I'm like, man, I would love just to have the week off to just like read and take in information. So that there's definitely something to be said for that. From Push-Ups. And I met you after you published your best book, Guilty. It was the first time I had heard about the impact of single motherhood. It was a great book.
Thank you. I was just thinking about that book. I love that book. And, well, I probably shouldn't even mention this, but this is the one thing I hold against J.D. Vance, whom I think is fabulous. And by the way, during that vice presidential debate, I was furiously looking up the actuarial tables, hoping I could calm everyone's mind and say, don't worry. The guy at the top of the ticket probably won't make it through his whole next term. We'll get J.D. I love JD, and he's very good on the two issues that I just said that I care the most about, immigration and trade. I care about Americans, and especially working class and middle class Americans who've just been crushed and stepped on over the past 40, 50 years by both parties. But once you get beyond those two, boy, Yale just does a number on these people. J.D. Vance is not very good on a lot of other issues. And one of them, which I'm not going to write this up. I guess this is before the election, but I'm not going to say it until after the election. This idea of paying women to have kids. And because you have extra money for your crib. Okay, Republicans have to stop trying to buy votes. Democrats are always going to outbid you, point one. But point two, how did we end up with so much illegitimacy in America? As I describe in Guilty, it's because we pay women to have kids. Don't worry, everybody wants to get married and have kids. It's biological. You don't need an advertising campaign for this. And oh my gosh, please don't pay them, or the people you want to pay not to have kids are going to be the ones having kids.
Yeah, that's true. They should pay the women who are maybe like 35 and they really love brunch and they're on the fence about having kids. Get those gals out of the pool. Chris Benoit. Hi, Ann. Big fan. I used to watch you on TV with my wife and son. I miss those days. This is an account. I guess this is a character who like killed his family, and so he's always in the chat like with funny questions. Okay, just disregard that. Push-ups. Trump not talking about Ukraine because he has promised to support Ukraine aid despite it not being popular. Oh, I don't know about this.
Are you sure about that?
You know, if Trump has to promise to support Ukraine aid. I haven't heard him talk about it at all.
Yeah, either have I. And I know JD was attacked for taking the DeSantis position.
Derek C. Thank you, Derek. I support gender reassignment surgery for illegals, whether they want it or not. That's what being an American is about, having the different genitals than you were born with. Oh, what's up, Jimmy? Jimmy G, love you. And Adios America is a great read. Oh, thanks, Jimmy.
That's going to be my official position now. Thank you, Jimmy.
Yeah. Like, look, you have to grow a penis on your arm like the rest of us if you want to fit in this country. Oh, Tina Guzman. They didn't Kamala now. She's the greatest. Why? This is 3/4 of a sentence, but I think what you're trying to say is why are they propping her up? Because they had to get all of Biden's money basically from all his PACs and all his donors. They just do
the funny thing was I had just gotten on a train right when Biden pulled out, so I could spend the next 2 hours reading the New York Times on the train. And the New York Times did not want Kamala. There were 17 different articles after Biden withdrew, editorials, and they went through like, now what happens next? They go through the whole process. And if they mentioned Kamala at all in these articles, it would be like paragraph 18. And they were explaining, there was one article, you just remind me of it, explaining how, actually Governor Shapiro or Whitmer or Andy Beshear, they definitely wanted one of those governors. They could get the money. They just do this, and that. And the editorial about it. So I get back to New York, I go out, have dinner, come home, and suddenly it's Kamala. And apparently in the interim, Biden came out and endorsed Kamala. And Chrissie, I think he absolutely did that because he wanted to stick it to the Democrats whom he had been telling, I'm the only one who can win. She's going to lose if you replace me with her.
Yeah, but they cooed his ass. They were like, nope, you're out, buddy. And I think it really pissed him off. There have been like little clips going around of him mouthing to Biden, like, she's not tough like I am. She can't handle it. I think he's like genuinely pissed.
Mm-hmm. But that's why he stuck them with Kamala. If they had a mini primary, or if you just had the smart guys in the Democratic Party pick, I think it would have been one of the three I just mentioned, Andy Beshear, Gretchen Whitmer, or Josh Shapiro. And no, they got the worst possible candidate. So this really is just, could the media get absolutely anyone elected? And if the answer is yes, we're going to get Kamala.
That is bleak. Yeah. Wow. From Junior, who are Ann's favorite comedians? Don't feel pressure to say me, of course.
Well, obviously, Chrissy. And I'm looking forward to the new sets on what it's like being a mother. Always love those. That will be fun. Who are my favorite comedians? That's funny. I never rank things as favorites. Jim Norton is amazing. Sherrod Small. Tim Dillon. Obviously,
he's
I
great.
love my friend Bill Maher. I'm trying to think. There's so many great ones at Comedy Cellar, and I forget their names. I recognize them when they get on stage. Oh, that one's really good.
No, Tim Dillon is great. He's I'm really proud of like the name he's made for himself, and he was not passed at the Cellar. Like he went an unconventional route and just kind of really blew up over social media and his podcast. So
oh, is that how he did it? He's really great.
Tim and I were on the same little kids dance troupe at Legs Limited in Rockville Center. I wish I would like love to find this picture of us. I think I'm definitely less than 10 years old. And Tim is like, he was the only boy in the class. He was and such a good dancer. He was like, we learned this choreography to like turn the beat around. And he was like the best little boy dancer I have ever seen. And now looking back, I was like, oh, that's what being gay is, like that's I didn't know at the time, but I'm like, that was the first like gay boy I had ever seen. I mean, of course, there's a million different ways to be gay, but
I wish there would have been cell phone videos back then. Oh, I'd love to see that.
And he was a little chunky, but such a good dancer. The most rhythm, very studied, on point. I don't know. Maybe I'll never find that photo. K-Max, and the true history of immigration in America was always pauses and restrictions, right? This idea America was always this open, unlocked door isn't true. 1924, there was a quota on who came in.
Yes, there was a complete shutdown in 24. And before that, before Teddy Kennedy's, and I highly recommend you read Adios America, my book about this. But until Teddy Kennedy's 1965 Immigration Act, the idea was, we have a great country here. King George referred to the revolution as that Presbyterian War. Americans in America during the revolution referred to themselves as Englishmen. It was a British colony, colonized mostly by British. Of the British Isles. Okay, there were a few other like wacky exotic groups like Germans and the Dutch, French. There weren't any Ugandans. We weren't bringing in
no
Congolese.
People from Congo, no Haitians.
Right. The idea was we will bring in people now that we're kind of set here and the country's great. We'll bring in people to match what the current demographic profile is. Well, Teddy Kennedy threw that off, flipped it, intentionally made it so that if you were part of the original founding ethnicities or nations, technically, you couldn't get in. No, now we're going to bring in the rest of the world.
Wow, really? I didn't know it was him.
And it's been pedal to the metal since then. And by the way, I don't think it's working that great.
No, I'm done with the melting pot. Bring back the Europeans. Chris asks, there is something about JD that concerns me. Can't quite put my finger on it, though. Do you believe we can trust him? And Charles, have you been taking in too much he's weird propaganda, perhaps?
That was a great thing about the vice presidential debate. Man, I have heard from people who believed that JD was weird. And if you watch the clips they were playing on MSNBC and CNN and so forth, you really would think there's something kind of off with this guy. Oh, he's awkward, he's weird. And then he gets on the debate stage and people get to see him for the first time. And I've heard from people, they said this was a bigger shock to me than the Biden-Trump debate. To see how totally normal and mature and fantastic JD was. And do I have doubts about him? Yes, that's what I subtly indicated a few minutes ago, that he did come from Yale. So for a Yalie, he's pretty great. But yeah, I think he was apolitical or liberal for a lot of his life, and he's smart enough. I think he'll figure it out. I absolutely trust him on the two things I care the most about, because he comes from that world. He comes from Appalachia and the left behind Americans. And I absolutely trust him on trade and immigration.
I trust his boyish good looks and those blue peepers. James Shart, smart guys in the Democratic Party. The fallout from 2016 convinced me that we have been overestimating their intelligence for years. Yeah, I mean, is it intelligence or more just like cunning and more just like sneakiness?
Yes, crafty.
They're crafty. Chris Thompson, Kamala will send us blindly into a war just to make people think she's tough. Lives will be lost. Hope I'm wrong. Ugh, that's sad.
That does happen a lot with the women, and I think it would. I mean, that's why I loathe and detest Nikki Haley. I was pointing this out on my podcast yesterday. They've done bad things. Don't everybody yell at me. Romney did vote to impeach Trump and said those terrible things about him, and Chris Christie has said some terrible things about Trump. He wasn't wrong. But I can't really hate them because Romney was really good on immigration. And he was, even like a couple of years ago in a hearing with Mayorkas, head of Homeland Security. He's smart. He's still good on some issues, though he has Trump derangement syndrome. Chris Christie, he's smart. He's articulate. He was good on some issues. Whereas Nikki Haley is just a bimbo and she's bad on every issue.
She is a bimbo.
And the war stuff, I mean, during those debates, she wants to start wars on 3 continents at once. What is it with these babes? They got to prove I can be commander in chief by going around trying. And Carly Fiorina was the same way. They love talking about starting wars. No, we got to take care of our own for a while.
Yeah. Definitely. Swag McFresh. And in 2016 was my first red pill. Started my journey from leftist to staunch right wing. Never looked back. I'll never forget your slaughter of Jorge Ramos. Ever read Alexander Dugan?
That makes me so happy. You can see, by the way, that was my very first interview with Jorge Ramos, because I knew I was going to be banned by Fox, their open borders. I knew I was pretty much going to be banned by the mainstream conservative media, so I would do anything. So a couple days before the book came out, flew down to Miami and did it in front of a studio audience, an interview on Adios America. Wow. It was a great interview. It was like a 1-hour interview. And that's the interview Trump saw. Here I am, like sending Post-it noted copies of Adios America to all the Republicans I liked, like Romney. And no, Trump contacts me as I'm on the way to the airport to fly up to New York and start the book tour, asking for a copy of the book because he saw that interview too.
What? I didn't know that. That's really cool. Wowie. I hope he sends you a pair of gold sneakers this time around.
All I want is a wall.
Yeah. The piano player. I like Coulter. She wants people like me to go back to Italy. Please send me. This American experiment has failed. No, we like the Italians. We like you guys. You bring
Not
value.
Only like the Italians. Actually, I'm glad he mentioned this because this is worth pointing out. The 1965 Immigration Act, where Teddy Kennedy changes who gets in, and it's mostly people who have no connection to the country, was simultaneous with the Great Society programs. We weren't a welfare state back then. So Italians are a great example. It used to be, kind of sink or swim. Come to America. It's laissez-faire. We don't care if you come, but we're not going to, submerge you in a bath of welfare entitlements if you can't make it. If you can't make it, you're going to go home. And Italians are a great example. I think it was about 50% of Italians went home because they couldn't make it. So we basically skimmed the cream of the world, mostly of Western Europe, and we got the best they had to offer because if they couldn't make it in our country, we weren't passing out SNAP benefits and free housing. And here's your cell phone. Can't make it, go home.
Yeah, that seems like the right way to do it. Not just, like we could float our own useless, dumb, poor people here. Why do we have to import more?
I know.
Row House, does Anne watch any of the big political YouTube channels besides Chrissy Steven Crowder or Tim Pool, Matt Walsh, Lauren Southern, or Lauren Chen? I would imagine you're just like too busy reading all the time to like get into
Yeah, I'm more of a reader. And also I like to the extent I listen to podcasts, like if I'm biking or in my car or something. And I don't recommend this. You'll crash your car. But I do try to listen to liberals so I know what they're up to.
That's good advice. I usually when I'm in a hotel, I'll put on CNN or something, and I go, "Ugh, this is horrible." I turn it off after 5 minutes, but it is good to stay in touch with what the other side is saying. Push-ups again. I would tell Putin, if you don't make a deal, we're going to give Ukraine a lot. We're going to give them more than they ever got if we have to. Trump to Maria Bartiromo.
Oh, you're
this is a
quoting
quote.
an
This is a quote. I'm reading that wrong.
Okay, that sounds like the sort of idiotic macho thing Trump would say. Okay, you're right, but I hate to say this, but you have to take everything that man says with a grain of salt.
Yes, he's a showman.
We have an idea what direction he's going in. We know that we didn't get in any wars. I really do not think he would approve of sending hundreds of billions of dollars to this utterly pointless war that's, like I say, doing nothing but getting Ukrainian men killed.
Mm-hmm. John Mack, big fan, and annoyed with your buddy Bill Maher, though. Had hope for him in 22-23, but now he's fallen back in line like a good soldier. Raskin Moynihan and some commie from Bulwark last night. Pathetic. I don't know what he's talking about.
I didn't see it, but I do know that my friend Maher is he is a liberal Democrat, though, but he's not crazy. So, and that's why as the left gets crazier and crazier, he seems to be coming to our side. I don't even think he's changed very much. He seems about the same to me in his beliefs and where he stands as he's kind of always been. And when I say he's a liberal Democrat, I think like a lot of people, if you really pinned them down, I think this is always true. A lot of people I think of who think of themselves as liberal Democrats and did it issue by issue, they would be shocked to discover how few issues they actually agree with liberal Democrats on. But it's just part of the milieu. When if you think of yourself as a liberal Democrat, you think of yourself as a liberal Democrat.
Yeah, like when I was in college, I would get in fights with my dad. I'd be like, "Dad, don't you care about the homeless? Don't you care about the gays?" When I was in my brainwashed liberal phase, it's like you like the idea, because it makes you feel like you're a better person. Row House, the neocons and their wars were hated by the left before when Bush and Cheney were in charge. Now Cheney and Bush endorse Kamala, and they are beloved. Do the Democrats hold any principles or just win at all costs?
It is very weird how the Democrats have flipped on this. I was a big supporter of the Iraq War. I still would be. Wouldn't hang out there for 20 years. But both Iraq and Afghanistan, we'd wrap them up in about a month. Still, I was in favor of them. And I don't like the generals. But yes, the two things about the Democratic Party have changed in a really big way. Obviously, I never believed them when they pretended to care about the working class, but they pretended to care about the working class. They were anti-Wall Street. And now it's funny, whenever people complain about inflation, the MSM, MSNBC, CNN, New York Times, their response is to say, "You're complaining about the economy? Look how the stock market's doing."
Yeah.
The stock market? Great. So your buddies on Wall Street are doing well. Wow, this isn't the Democratic Party. I remember. The other one is the war stuff. Oh my gosh, they have become the warmongers. I mean, I never thought Republicans were the warmonger party. Remember when, well, no, you young kids won't remember this, but in a debate, whenever Bob Dole was running for president in 96, he referred to America's wars as those Democrat wars, because it's true. Republicans keep us out of war, and Democrats, both parties will promise not to take us to war, and Democrats tend to take us to war. They attacked Dole because, oh, are you saying you wouldn't have fought Hitler? Okay, don't drop the Hitler thing. But we certainly didn't have to be escalating in Vietnam under LBJ.
Yeah. Gabriel Knight. And even if you think he's been a disappointment, isn't it worth voting for Trump just to ensure that Alito and Thomas are replaced by conservatives and we maintain a 6-3 court?
Oh, yes, 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 yes. Oh, yes. No, and especially compared to the plans the Democrats have for us. Yes. And they will pack the court. By the way, if any of you are voting in any Senate elections, please, please, please vote Republican, because even if that communist dingbat gets in, if we just have a majority in the Senate, we can probably prevent the complete dismantling of our country. But yes,
Wow.
for the judges, you would vote for Trump. The other reason I had for voting for Trump, and I already voted and I did vote for Trump, was because if he loses again, Chrissy, he's going to run in 4 years. And every 4 years,
You
he's
think so?
going to election for us
He's
for the
gonna
rest
be
of my life.
he's gonna be old. How old is he gonna be in 4 years? What is he? How old is he now?
78. I told you, I looked up
78.
the actuarial tables. He'll probably be fine.
They'll pump him with enough vitamins and McDonald's to keep going.
He says he's not going to, but as I said to the person who just called in and corrected me on his quote on Marie, I don't know how to say her last name, on Bartoloma.
But yeah, Marie Paloma.
Yeah, take everything he says with a grain of salt. He says he won't run again in 4 years. No, not again. Let's get this over.
This question from Old Nerdy. I can't read the full thing because one of it involves kind of a no topic with YouTube, but I think we can address the bottom part, which deals about what you think the impact of illegal migrant voting will be. Will it be significant?
Isn't it odd that Democrats are so into not having people prove they're citizens? And if you didn't see this week, a Chinese national non-citizen at University of Michigan voted in Ann Arbor. His vote will count. How did they catch him? Because this never happens. It never happens. It's, oh, no, don't worry. There's no vote fraud. There are no illegals, or he was a legal immigrant, but not a citizen. That never, ever happens. I'm assured by Democrats that it never happens. The only way they caught him was he went back the next day and asked for his ballot back. Apparently, he changed his mind about who he wanted to vote for or something. That's
boy.
The only way they caught him. And then riddled throughout the article in the Detroit Press was Secretary of State and Diana Nessel, I think her name is Dina Nessel, and all the Democratic officials in Michigan saying this never happens. We catch them right away. It's incredibly rare that how do you know? There's no way to catch them. There's no way to find them. And if you do find them, once they vote, their votes count because you don't know which ballot it was.
Yep. Yeah, there's no way. And they're not patrolling all the voting stations like they should. So
and they ferociously fight against having to prove your citizenship.
Yeah, and they keep saying, well, you can't get an ID, and we don't want to force the poor people to have to get IDs. That's so insane to me. Okay, only a couple more. Mike, do you think all this fascism, Hitler, Nazi stuff was a good campaign strategy? What would you have done differently if you were running Kamala's campaign? Oh God. Give out free knee pads.
I talked about that on my Substack video yesterday, because there was an article in the New York Times on Thursday saying, and no, I thought it was I almost laughed when I heard her say, when Anderson Cooper asked Kamala during that live interview, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist? Yes. And I think I started laughing. And there is some big, obviously more professional than Kamala's operation, Democratic PAC that's begging the Kamala campaign, stop calling him a fascist. Please stop. Please, please. This is so not helping. You sound like a lunatic. And I think they're right. I think they do sound like lunatics and very nasty people. And it does seem to be a measure of desperation, which ought to make us happy, unless Democrats are just naturally depressive people.
From Lorem Ipsum, how do you think leftists are going to retaliate if Trump wins this election? They've already shown us they have no impulse control.
That's a great. I was just talking to my friend Heather McDonald about this, because she says, oh man, if Trump wins, the riots, the hysteria, none of my friends are going to speak to me. And I said to her, is it really going to be that bad? We already went through 4 years with him. It wasn't
Yeah.
Didn't
It
do
was
that
better
much.
than now.
There were no mass deportations. I wish there would be mass deportations after they, piled up the country with 11 million illegals. That's one thing he really has to do. The Democrats shouldn't be able to just, we're going to bring in 11 million voters illegally. They shouldn't be, okay, well, you get to keep those, but going forward, you can't. No, you got to get rid of
Yeah.
those. But there was no everything they're predicting now. He was president before. He was basically your standard Republican. I didn't tell anyone, but it broke months later. A few months into his presidency, I showed up in the Oval Office and stood at the Resolute desk and yelled and cursed at him for a solid 45 minutes for not getting rid of NAFTA, for not starting the wall, for saying nice things about the Dreamers. And he started cursing first, but we were cursing at one another. And the one thing that really got him mad was when he started saying some good stuff he was doing, I don't know, tax cuts or something. I said, yeah, okay, everything you've done, Jeb would have done. And that got me upset.
Oh, that's a burn.
Ooh, he basically governed the way Jeb would have. And okay, any Republican is going to be better than pretty much any Democrat, and absolutely Kamala. Inflation will be taken care of, interest rates will go down, things will be cheaper because fuel won't be so expensive. All the basic stuff that Republicans do, you need to vote even for a loon like Trump. But what I really wanted was the mass deportations on the wall.
Yeah, same. Okay, 2 more, and then we're done. John Mack, thank you for publicly disclosing you voted for Trump. Not an endorsement. Understood. What do you think Vivek's future is? I really dig him. I see maybe a cabinet position for him.
Oh, yeah. He is very articulate, though I would not vote for him for president because he's an Indian.
Not enough muscles for me, personally.
Yes, I want at least third or fourth generation American in the Oval Office. I told him that on his podcast. Come on, you can be a judge, you can be a governor, your kids can be president or your grandkids. Yeah, there are probably a lot of good. I'd like him in a position where he can talk. He's a good talker.
Yeah, he is. He's
He's
very
very
polished.
articulate and he's very smart. I'm not sure I trust him as far as I can throw him, but the same thing I thought about Trump, and I'm sorry, I haven't had a Nicorette gum, and that's when I get a little too wordy. I can control myself more, but I felt like it was the same way with Trump, who used to be a liberal Democrat. Once you start, even if you're just faking a persona, once you fake it for a while, especially if it's a good persona, if it makes sense, if it's common sense, if it's good for the country, you actually sort of convince yourself and you come to believe it. And so I suspect Vivek, he is very common sense. And even if he didn't start off believing it, I bet he believes it all now.
I think he appeals a lot to the 40 and under demographic, big time for men and women. Probably more men though. And last one from Jimmy G. Has Ann always been an Islanders fan?
Well, I hate to admit it, but no, I'm kind of like Hillary. I'll root for both. But I used to be a Rangers fan, and then, as you know, Chrissy, my friend bought the Islanders. So now I'm all in with the Islanders.
Yeah, those games are fun.
They're really fun, and I like Islanders fans.
Especially when they win. Yeah.
Yeah. But they're always really, I do really like Islanders fans, and I really like the Islanders.
Yeah, because it's a lot of like sassy Long Islanders mostly.
Yeah.
Awesome. And thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you? What's coming up? Anything like that you want to let people know about?
Well, the election. anncoulter.substack.com. I have my column from this week, my last column. I have 2 videos, one with our friend, I think you know him, Chrissy, Ryan Jerdusky, the one who's been banned for life.
Oh my gosh, that story. Wow.
For the excellent beeper joke. Well, I insist that he's a star and I made him. So we did an interview on that, and that, as well as my interview with Mickey Kaus on how the election is going to go. I just posted yesterday.
Awesome. Everybody subscribe to Ann's Substack. Follow her on Twitter. And I think I have someone that wants to say hello to you. Oh my goodness. Oh.
A mohawk.
He scratched his face with his nails that I need to clip, but
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's so cute.
Oh,
Oh my gosh, he's cute.
he's a big boy. Oh, look at the
He
camera.
is big. Didn't you just have him?
6 months ago. Yeah, he's 21 pounds or so. Look, say
He's
hi.
big. He's going to be playing for the Islanders.
I hope so. I hope he plays baseball. Oh, he's so cute.
Does he know what trouble he is with all that breast milk pumping?
Yeah,
Appreciates
he
that.
doesn't appreciate that I was spilling breast milk throughout the Westchester airport and the DC airport. But one day I'll tell him. Thank you everybody so much for watching. Thank you everybody in the chat for your questions and comments. Everybody, subscribe to Ann, buy her books, subscribe to the Substack, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
So fun talking to you, Chrissy. Bye-bye.
Say bye, Frankie. Oh my God. He's touching the thing.